Hey, beautiful human. Thanks for tuning in to the Bold Women in Business podcast. I've got something special planned for you over the next 5 weeks. We are leading up to season 3 of this podcast, which is bonkers. I can't even believe that we are almost on the 3rd season of this show. It's been such a fun ride. And we're launching that on October 5th. So over the next 5 weeks, we're doing a countdown of our top 5 episodes of all time. There's a good mix of guest episodes, solo episodes, some from season 1, some from season 2, really, really juicy, impactful episodes that are going to give you so much value. So if you missed them the first time around, you will be able to tune in this time. And if you did not miss them and you heard them before, you're still going to get a lot out of listening to them again. If you're not someone who likes to re-listen to episodes, that's okay. Just hit pause. We'll be back on October 5th with the launch of season 3. I have a really special episode planned for our kickoff of season 3. The whole season 3 is planned out. We've got some incredible guest episodes planned, in addition to a bunch of really deep solo episodes. And I'm just super excited to share it all with you. So without further ado, let's dive into the 5th most popular episode of the Bold Women in Business podcast, which is episode 26, The Impact Circle. In this episode, I share a really powerful framework for having the biggest impact in your business. And this is going to help you attract clients, create change, and avoid spiraling out every time you're trying to create something for your social media. So let's dive in. Can't wait to share this one with you. Hey, beautiful human. You're listening to Bold Women in Business, the show where strategy meets soul in marketing, branding, and business growth. I'm your host, Rachel Honeyman, messaging and branding strategist, content queen, and compulsive meaning maker. Every week, I'll help you ditch the cookie cutter playbook and build a brand that actually sounds like you, sells like hell, and feels so damn good to show up for. Let's get bold. You are here because you want to make a bigger impact in the world through your business. You're not just here to make a bunch of money and Scrooge McDuck it, as fun as it looks to jump into a pile of money. I don't think that's what we're all here to do. We talked in our last episode about how much impact we can have by building wealth. And money is this super essential piece of building the biggest impact that we can. But it's only one piece of the puzzle. Whether it's through the clients that you serve, the community that you're a part of and you support, or a legacy that you want to leave behind, impact is at the heart of why we are building these businesses. But impact doesn't just happen. You don't just wake up and suddenly you're making an impact. You don't build wealth by just winging it. And you don't grow a brand that is strong and powerful by staying vague and invisible and saying all the same things that everyone else is saying. You just don't. You need clarity, consistency, and boldness to actually show up and say the thing that needs to be said and say the thing that you are uniquely positioned to say, and in a way that uniquely solves your audience's problems. That all starts with your brand. So I want you to visualize something with me. Picture a circle with 5 points around it, each one leading to the other. We've got clockwise arrows going around a circle leading between 5 different points. At the top of the circle, we've got an impact-driven brand, a really clear brand that stands out, is very clear about what impact you're trying to make through that brand, and speaks to what your clients are looking for. So we've got impact-driven brand. The next point in the circle is strategic visibility. You could have the most powerful brand in the world, but if you are not staying consistently and strategically visible in a way that feels very mission aligned, you're not going to actually get that message and that brand in front of the right people. The next piece of that puzzle is business growth. Without a strong brand and consistent visibility, you're going to have a really hard time building a strong, healthy business. It's just really, really hard in today's world to do that without those pieces in place. We are long past the days of, door-to-door salesmen. You're probably not running a brick and mortar business. Some of my clients are running brick and mortar businesses, but most are running online businesses. I think most people listening to this podcast are probably running online businesses. And even for a brick and mortar business, If you don't have a really strong impact-driven brand and strategic visibility, you're not going to have as much success as a business. So we've got that business growth piece. The next piece of the puzzle, the next point on this circle is wealth creation. And that comes back to the conversation last week with Kristen Printon, where we talked about how you can create wealth through your business, but also outside of your business. And that comes down to investing and, all sorts of other pieces that we're not going to get into the nitty-gritty of today because we talked about that in the last episode. But that is a really essential piece. And then through that, we are able to have the greatest impact possible. So again, whether that's an impact that you want to make on your clients, and having more clients allows you to have more of that positive impact on them. It could be on a much broader scale in your community, or Kristen talked about how she started this scholarship fund for a cause that she feels really passionate about. So it can be something like that. That also comes back to something that we talked about in the episode with Rich Brooks about creating kind of something outside of your business that is very values aligned. It can be somehow connected to your business, but it really allows you to express the values that are most important to you and allows you to make that biggest impact. So these 5 points on the circle really loop back around because you can be making this impact, but unless you continue to fuel your brand, your visibility, your business growth, your wealth creation, you're not going to have the biggest impact. So we want to keep circling around and helping these pieces work together. And the bolder your brand becomes, the more powerful the cycle gets. This is what I call the impact circle. And that's really what I want to focus on today and walk you through today. So let's talk about your brand. A lot of people, probably most people, think that a brand is about how you look. It's about your visuals. It's about how people perceive your brand. It's what people see, and your visuals matter. Of course, we've talked about this before, but your brand is really about how you make people feel. And it's the emotional connection to your deepest values as a brand. Why do you exist? Right? Without that, why do you exist? You're not going to get that gut level reaction from people where people say, oh my God, she gets me. When they see your content or they see your website or they see something from your brand, they should feel that immediate connection to your brand. And when you nail your brand, when it's really deeply rooted in your values and your why, you're not just recognizable, you're memorable. And that's really what positions you as someone that's worth following and working with and investing in. And that's what's going to keep bringing people back to you. When your brand is clear and emotionally resonant, it creates alignment between what you stand for and who you attract. And that alignment is what creates momentum, and that momentum is what leads to growth. You can't get all of these other pieces of the puzzle without a strong brand. That's why I always say in my work with clients, I start with a foundation of brand strategy. Because if we don't have clarity on who you are as a brand and why you exist and what sets you apart and who you're talking to and what your messages are and what are your pillars as a brand, if we don't have a clear understanding of those pieces, we can't have the other pieces. It doesn't just happen magically. You need that foundation. It's so, so, so essential. I experienced this myself when I did what many, many people do, and I put the cart before the horse, right? I had my business for about a year before I rebranded as Honeybee Bold. About a year and a half ago, my company was known as Honeyman Creative, which is a fine name. It's pretty boring, but it's a fine name. I have a good last name. And my visuals were actually really nice. I had a very clean, aesthetically pleasing website. My logo was nice. People actually commented on my logo. They really liked it. For all intents and purposes, I had a nice brand. In terms of how people perceive brand, if it's just focused on the visuals, I had that. I had a clear, consistent, visual brand that people liked. But it was missing the foundation of what do I stand for as a brand? Who am I? What is my purpose here in building this business? Who do I want to speak to? What are the challenges that I'm trying to solve? And all of those pieces that really make up that foundation of brand strategy. I was missing those pieces. And when I went through my rebrand, I took that step back and I built a foundation and I really put those pieces in place. And then I rebranded. I went through the process of completely rebranding. I redid my website. I changed the name of my company to Honey Be Bold. All of my colors and my, logo and all the visuals look different, but much more than the visuals, the essence of my brand changed. The message that I was putting out there changed. And I saw a massive shift in how people were responding to that, because it went from people saying, "Oh, your logo's so cool," to "I feel like you're in my head. I see myself in your content. I feel seen through your content." That was such a massive shift that happened because, again, once I got clear on who I am as a brand and what I stand for, I was able to then connect that to what my dream clients, my ideal customers, my audience needs to hear and what they are struggling with and how I can help solve those challenges. So I really saw this myself. This happens all the time where people reach out to me and they, they want to work with me because of my brand. It happens like every week. I get messages from people who say that explicitly. They say, "Your brand resonates with me so much. And the things that you are putting out into the world resonate with me so much. And I want to work with you because of that." And that doesn't mean that someone is looking for a brand that's exactly like mine, right? Sometimes I have clients who are like, "I want my brand to have a very similar vibe to yours. I want it to be super bold, super out there, super bright, super colorful," all of those things. Sometimes that happens. More often than not, that happens because people are drawn to me for that reason. But I also have people who come to me and they say the underlying pieces of your brand, the things that kind of make up what your brand stands for, that's what really resonates with me. And they might want something that's much more muted. They might want something that feels much more, quote unquote, professional, right? In the classical sense. And that's totally fine. Again, the visuals are a representation of what the brand is. But until I got clear on what my brand is, I couldn't connect that with what people were looking for. I couldn't connect that with the emotional needs of my audience. And you'll see that too. If you don't have a clear brand, if you're, really struggling to kind of put those pieces in place and define what sets you apart as a brand and who are you and all those pieces, if you're struggling with that, you're going to struggle to make that emotional connection. But once you build that foundation, it's so much easier to make that emotional connection with your dream clients in whatever arena you're working in. You could be a coach or a therapist, or you could have, a store that you run, or whatever it is that you're doing. You need to have that emotional connection with your ideal audience. Quick pause. Can we talk about content for a second? If you're staring at a blank screen more often than you're hitting post, it might be because you're trying to create content that doesn't fit your actual strengths. It's kind of like wearing someone else's jeans. They may look super good on your friend, but you put them on and they are not comfortable and they just aren't doing your butt any favors. That's why I created the Content Marketing Power Type quiz. It's free and it helps you figure out the kind of content you were made to create. The kind of content that feels natural, sustainable, and actually connects with your people in a way that lights you up. In just 45 seconds, or maybe even 30 if you're quick about it, you're going to find out your power type and get custom recommendations to make content feel easier and more effective. Head on over to honeybebold.com/quiz. That's honeybebold.com/quiz. Take it and then DM me your result because I kind of need to know. All right, let's dive back into the episode. Okay, so we've got the brand piece down, right? We understand how important the brand is. Now we need to talk about visibility because, again, like I said, if you have the most well built out brand, it is a perfect representation of who you are and what you stand for and all of those pieces. If you are not staying visible in the right ways, in the right places, at the right cadence, all of those pieces, if you're not staying visible to your dream audience, they'll never know that your brand has that emotional connection that they need. They won't see that because you're not staying visible. So there's this myth that so many of us get stuck in. So many of us think that we have to perfect content before we put it out there. We have this idea because there is so much perfect content out there, seemingly perfect content out there. We see the influencers that have high production videos and all of this stuff, and it makes us feel like we have to be doing the same thing. Like that is the expectation. But what your audience needs is not 100 different messages, and they don't need perfection, and they don't need high production value. They need repetition and emotional resonance. And if they see those things, if they see that from you in a really authentic way, they will connect with you. But here's the kicker. They need to see that one core message. And we talked about this before in a previous episode. I believe it was episode 19, where I talked about how you really need to just have 2, 3, maybe 4 at a max messages that you are repeating over and over and over again. People need to associate you with the things that you want to be associated with, the thing that you want to be known for. And that's really what visibility is. It's intentional repetition with emotional depth. It's not going as broadly as possible, it's going as deep as possible. And so it's about showing up and staying top of mind in those ways on those topics that you want to be known as an expert in. And here's where people get stuck. It's not just about thinking they need to perfect their content before putting it out there. They also think that they need to be in all the places, all the time, in all ways, and they just feel overwhelmed. And it's just not necessary. There are ways to streamline the system. And I'm working on something that I'm not ready to share yet, but I'm working on something that is going to be so helpful for you to really streamline this content creation system so that you can stay visible to your audience. So stay tuned. I will be ready to talk about it really, really soon. We're putting the finishing touches on it. But in the meantime, go listen to episode 19 if you haven't yet, because it really talks about how to repurpose your content. It's going to show you how to go deep on topics that you want to be known as the expert in and do so in a way that does not burn you out. It doesn't make you feel like you have a second full-time job creating content for your business. But staying visible is so, 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 so important. It is essential to growing your business and building your brand and connecting on an emotional level with your audience. And when you have those two pieces in place, you have a really strong brand and you're staying visible in ways that are strategic, not just randomly posting a bunch, but they're strategic. That is what leads to business growth. It's not always a direct result. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that there's a guarantee of anything. If you've been in business for any amount of time, really, even if you just launched your business a month ago, you should know already that there are no guarantees in business. But there are guarantees of what will happen if you don't have these pieces in place. If you do not have a strong brand, if you are not staying visible, if you are just sitting back and hoping that people are going to get what you're doing and come to you, you're not going to be able to build a strong, successful business. Sometimes people experience some sense of beginner's luck, where they have, people in their network who are coming to them through word of mouth. That dries up really, really quick. It really does. And I'm telling you this from personal experience. When I first went out on my own before Honeybee Bold, when I was just Honeyman Creative and I was kind of just doing whatever came my way, I had actually a really successful first year in business. I had enough work. I had enough work coming through word of mouth. And then it really dried up. It was my first 6 months were really successful. And then, that kind of just carried me for the rest of the year. But I then realized how quickly that dries up. And without the consistently visible content that I'm putting out there all the time, I would not have the business that I have today. I would have gone and gotten a real job, as they say, a long time ago. So don't rely on that. Don't rely on word of mouth. You need to be building systems so that you can stay consistently visible to your audience and build that really, really strong brand. And then once you have this successful business, you have enough money coming in, not just to sustain you, but to actually start to build this wealth engine. Then it comes to that wealth building machine, right? That we talked about with Kristen Prince in last episode. Again, I'm not going to get into the nitty gritty on that because it's not my area of expertise. The investing side of things is not my area of expertise. But go listen to that episode and start educating yourself about how you can start to take the success that you're building in your business and leverage that to build more wealth outside of your business. This is really important. I also talked about that in season 1 with Gina Knox. That was also a really good episode to listen to, really good conversation. So go back and listen to that one as well. And then that is really where impact comes in. So let's go back to that circle that we talked about earlier, right? Everything starts with this impact-driven brand. Without an impact-driven brand that is really clear, you're not going to be able to build just about anything. You need that first and foremost. That brand is going to fuel strategic, values-aligned visibility. That's what's going to keep you top of mind for your audience. That's what's going to make them think of you when they need help with what they need help with. Visibility and a strong brand lead to business growth, a healthy, successful business, and that growth unlocks wealth building opportunities. Wealth then becomes the vehicle for greater impact. And I want to just clarify, we did talk about this in the episode with Kristen, but I just want to clarify, when I'm talking about wealth, I'm not talking about being, a millionaire or certainly not a billionaire. You don't need that. As we talked about in the last episode, you don't need a ton to start making an impact. You're already making an impact through your business and the clients that you work with and the work that you do every day. You're making an impact. So don't discount the impact that you can make, but you are going to be able to make a much bigger impact the more you're able to build this successful business through a strong brand, through visibility, and then the wealth building machine can be part of accelerating that impact. And then we start the cycle again, but at a higher level with more power behind it. That's just how it works. You need to keep fueling this cycle to continue making as big of an impact as you can. The women that I see making the biggest impact are the ones who are brave enough to be themselves and really step into their authentic selves, really own who they are and what they believe in, what they care about, what they stand for, and doing so out loud. They're not worried about being professional enough. They're not worried about playing safe. They're building brands that are honest, human, and magnetic as hell. If you want to make the biggest impact that you can and you want to build wealth and make change, you have to let people see you. Not the polished version, not the perfect version, the real you, the authentic you. That's what's going to create trust and loyalty. And that's what builds the kind of business that truly changes lives, shifts lives. And that really starts with you. If you're sitting there thinking, I want that clarity, but I have no idea how to get it. I want to feel bold and confident about my message. I want to finally show up like the expert I know I am, even if you have imposter syndrome. I think I'm going to talk about imposter syndrome next week because this has been on my mind a lot lately. 90% of people I know are dealing with imposter syndrome in some way. So you are probably experiencing that on some level, but you still know on some level that you are an expert and you certainly want to show up as an expert. But you don't know how to do this. You don't know how to put these pieces of the puzzle in place. I would love to chat with you. Let's hop on a quick vibe check call. We'll get on a call for 15 minutes and just talk, and we'll get to know each other, and I'll get an understanding of where you're feeling stuck and if I'm the right fit to help you build a brand that not only feels aligned, but actually creates results. I would love to do that. And if I'm not, I will be so honest with you. I'm an extremely honest, transparent person. So I will tell you if I'm not the right person to help you, and I will help direct you to the right person if I have that person in my network. So reach out to me on Instagram or LinkedIn, or send me an email at hey@honeybeebold.com. I would love to chat and see how I can help you get unstuck and build the brand that you deserve to build. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time. All right, beautiful human. That's a wrap on this episode of Bold Women in Business. This episode was brought to you by my company, Honey Be Bold, with music by Shmukulele. But before you go, don't forget to take the Content Marketing Power Type quiz at honeybeebold.com/quiz, because when your content fits your power type, showing up gets way easier and your marketing actually starts working for you. Until next time, stay bold, stay kind, and keep doing it your way.